Yeah, but 50 are candidates the rest. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the session on our clinical programming, our Pro Bono initiative, which is our volunteer program, and the Career Services Office. I overall refer to this as experiential opportunities. I'm going to briefly introduce each of our panelists. They're going to describe the work that they do in their office, a little bit about their background, and then like with the faculty panel, we'll open it up for questions. I already let them know that during the faculty panel, there were a couple of questions addressing immigration and the programming we have there, as well as the job market in Utah generally. Sitting immediately to my left is Professor Linda Smith. She is the program director, or the director of our clinical programming. I'll throw a pitch out for her. When I was a law student, her program in the clinics was one of my favorite parts of the law school experience. It's one of those things that once I started doing it, I said, this is why I'm going to law school and what I hope to be doing as an attorney. Sitting next to her is also related to that in that Jolyn Spruance is the director of our Pro Bono initiative. And the students have loved the opportunities that have been provided to them in pursuing the interests that they have in public interest work and working with attorneys who are committed to the ideals of pro bono work, volunteer work. Sitting next to her is Katie Pippin. She is one of our students who has experience as a student in both the clinical programming as well as serving as a student, you're student director, right, in PBI? A student fellow in our pro bono initiative. And then sitting next to her is Jess Hoffberger. He is the director of our Career Development Office, and it's now your 6th year in that role, 5th year in that role. So I'll turn the time over to Linda.
Okay, hi. Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited about your possibly joining us as an entering class next year. So I've been here longer than you want to note, because Reyes was one of my great students, and it wasn't even the first year I was teaching. I practiced law in Boston before I moved to Utah. I did general litigation at a big firm and hated that, and then did family law at a legal services office and loved that, and thought I had the best job in the world because I got to be in charge of family law reform in the office. And then politics changed, and I moved to Utah. And I was really fortunate to be able to study the then existing clinical program and then develop it. So what our clinical program looks like today involves very extensive opportunities to get practice experience during any semester of your 2nd or 3rd year. During the first year, we trap you into required classes, but as soon as the first year is over, summer after your first year, you can start doing clinical experiences. Most of our clinical experiences are in the community with existing nonprofits or governmental offices or courts. And for every clinical placement opportunity, there's a class that goes along with to either prepare you to have the skills that you need to do the work in that office, and also to reflect upon what you're learning and what you're seeing. So Reyes learned interviewing and counseling skills working with legal services and doing outreach to the homeless, and now you see he's got these great interviewing and counseling skills working with all of you. We have placements that do immigration law, with respect to U visas and then defense of deportation. Then I should mention that we also have a few in-house clinics, which means you're going to be supervised directly by a law professor. The Rocky Mountain Innocence Center that investigates claims of innocence is headed up by Jenzy Anderson. She's a professor in our legal methods department, so it's here, but it's also with a nonprofit. We have a low-income taxpayers clinic that's located here, and we have a public policy clinic that looks into public policy issues. They've recently been dealing with criminal matters and juvenile delinquency matters, and particularly addressing the school-to-prison pipeline. So that's a really quick overview. I should say, we turn in statistics to the ABA, which accredits law schools. And then journalists get statistics from the ABA because they want to write magazine articles. And the National Jurist has featured us a number of times. One year we had more clinic hours per student than any other law school other than Yale in the country. More recently, we've been ranked as the 12th best school in the nation for getting practical experience in terms of all of our clinical opportunities and our pro bono opportunities. And with that, I will segue to Jolynn.
Thank you, Professor Smith. My name is Jolynn Spruance, and I've worked at the College of Law for 14 years. I'm the director of the Pro Bono Initiative. One of the unique features of the Pro Bono Initiative is that we actually operate and run 10 free legal clinics throughout the whole year. Katie, who's my fellow, will talk a little bit more about the ins and outs of PBI, but I will say if you get active and you volunteer, PBI will be one of the most, wouldn't you say one of the best experiences in your law school career. Many of our clinic sites are do you want to explain the attorney part? Sure. Okay.
I'm Katie Pepin. I am a 3L here at the law school, so I'm graduating soon, which is pretty exciting. I am one of Jolynn's PBI fellows, as she said, and the PBI program is one of the many reasons why I actually chose to come to this school. So I'm not from Utah, I'm actually from Michigan, and I came to visit and got to learn about PBI and all the opportunities that are available, and that was one of the big reasons why I chose to move across the country and come all the way to Utah, which is sort of strange. But so as Jolynn said, we have 10 free brief advice legal clinics. They cover many different areas of law. So we have a street law clinic, which kind of handles everything: consumer issues, landlord-tenant, some very simple criminal stuff that may come in. We have a family law clinic, a debtor's clinic. We have 3 community legal clinics, which deal with immigration law and family law. We have an expungement clinic, which helps people with barriers to employment. There's our Rainbow Law Clinic, which deals with LGBT issues. We have a medical legal clinic. We have an American Indian legal clinic. And I think that's all of them. So,
our community legal clinics are actually one of the most exciting projects because those are donor sponsored, and we meet 3 times a month throughout the year. We have fantastic volunteer immigration attorneys that come and supervise our legal clinics. We work with about 100 volunteer attorneys a semester that cycle through, and many of those attorneys are actually alumni from the College of Law. So there's a lot of networking that goes on, a lot of mentoring due to the clinics.
And there are some really great attorneys to learn from. They come to volunteer at these clinics, one, because they are really invested in pro bono, but they're also really invested in our students. And so they really take that time to help mentor you and help you. How do you do an intake when an interview? How do you kind of handle someone who wants to talk about their entire life and you've got 15 minutes to find out the legal issue? They're really great that way. And I will say that pro bono is one of the main reasons. My employer has said multiple times that my involvement in pro bono is one of the main reasons why they chose to hire me. So it's also a great place to meet attorneys and also hopefully find that connection to maybe get a job after law school, which is really important.
Jess?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Good to see you all out there today. I am Jess Hofberger. I'm the director of the Career Development Office. Oftentimes we'll refer to it as CDO. A lot of times I think people look at this stage and they think, oh, it goes from Reyes at the beginning and then during and then I'm kind of at the end. But it doesn't really work that way. It's all interwoven. Katie said it perfectly. It's her experience in the clinics in doing pro bono work led to her employment. So it's, we're there for your entire law school experience. Starting as 1Ls, you'll get to know our office and our team, and we put together a lot of different events to connect you to our legal community. One of the wonderful things about this school is that it is very physically proximate to a lot of the attorneys in the state because it's right downtown. It's a quick tracks ride away. So we can constantly be bringing attorneys into the building or having events down at government agencies and courts and law firms and businesses. So you'll get a chance to meet a lot of the attorneys in the area. And it'll turn out after a while that although there's a lot of attorneys, there's a finite number. Pretty soon you can start to get to know a lot of the people. You can be a degree or two away from knowing most of the attorneys in town. And that's a really great feeling. It's being part of another larger community, a professional community. And that's one of the big goals of my office is helping you join the ranks of our fellow attorneys here in town. And I think that's me.
Thanks, Jess. Before I open up the floor to your questions, I want to ask a couple of questions of panelists. The first is asking Professor Smith to distinguish the clinical program from PBI in one is credit bearing and the other is entirely volunteer.
Right. The clinical program is an academic program, and you get credit for what you do. You have to make a substantial commitment of time. You devote 100 to 150 hours a semester to earn 2 or 3 credits, and then you have to take a course that goes along with, which might be a 2 or 3 credit course. During the course of your law school career, you could earn up to 14 credits for doing work outside the law school. So every semester you could do 3 credits. And the courses that go along with, like the lawyering skills class that I teach, that does interviewing, counseling, negotiating, those are graded classes, just like other classes at the law school, and those don't count toward your 14 credits. PBI is an entirely volunteer program. The PBI, and I volunteer at PBI because I have family law expertise, so I go to the family law clinic and boss people around, even though I'm just a volunteer. But the PBI, they look to have you volunteer less than 5 hours a week. You don't get credit for it. You don't get graded in it. It's very student-run. I think that's one of the real attractions, that the students take the responsibility of setting up the sites, of recruiting the lawyers, of recruiting the students, of orienting the students, of making sure the lawyers show up, of organizing the paperwork, of telling you where to sit and what to do next. And so it does give students leadership opportunities as well as an opportunity to meet. People that want to do family law, I say, well, you have to do the clinics at the Legal Aid Society or Legal Services or the Guardian Ad Litem because you're doing basic family law in terms of divorce, you're doing domestic violence cases, you're doing Guardian Ad Litem cases with kids in foster care. That's your full range of family law materials. But you also have to do the PBI clinic in family law because there you see a range of issues. You learn, you get the full range of problems that might occur.
And with PBI, you do get a certificate. If you complete 50 hours, by the time you graduate, you get a certificate of service.
The thing about the certificate of service and the philosophy of the program that's different than some law schools is we don't have a mandatory participation in the pro bono initiative. We philosophically believe that you shouldn't be mandated to volunteer. But we do see upwards of about 75% of our students have certificates or are eligible for the 50-hour certificate at graduation. Katie, can you also talk a little bit about, there's a financial benefit if you are engaged as a student in volunteering, how you came about your role as a fellow in PBI?
Yeah, so I started volunteering at PBI. You can start the second semester of your 1L year, which is really great because you get a chance to get out of the classroom and actually get to apply a little bit of what you've learned. So I started volunteering then, getting involved in the clinics. From there, Jolynn kind of has her own selection process to pick from those who volunteer student directors. And those student directors are the ones that oversee the daily operations of those clinics. They're the ones who have to get the student volunteers, organize everything that way, handle issues that arise. So I was a student director or co-student director for our street law clinic. And then from there, there's an application process. There's a lot of fellowships you can do here at the school. Becoming a pro bono initiative fellow is one of those opportunities. And so after an application process, I was selected to be a PBI fellow, which is great because you get this is going to be really bad because I don't know all the details of it, even though I have it, but you get a tuition benefit that helps to pay for your tuition, and you also get, it seems like a paycheck because it comes every other week like it should, but it's more like a stipend, I think, is it?
It's your paycheck. It's compensation.
It feels like a paycheck because it comes every 2 weeks, but they cut it out as like a semester, what you get per semester, but it comes every 2 weeks like a paycheck, which is really nice to have because, as we all know, law school is expensive, and so it's great to not be able to do something that I love and also get paid for it, which is great.
The last question I'm going to pose, and it's going to come back to you, Professor Smith, is it's been a fairly recent development here in the Utah jurisdiction that previously you could only practice or appear before a court as a law student if you were in your third year, with the one exception being what's called an administrative court. Now they've created, and it was commonly referred to as the third year practice rule. A couple of years ago, I believe they changed it to a second year practice rule with some limitations. Can you explain how that works, Professor Smith?
Some people really do want to be litigators and do want to appear in court, so the opportunity to appear in criminal law matters, in family law matters, in landlord-tenant matters are the most typical areas in which students will appear in court. And you can appear in court for non-evidentiary hearings, right, just arguing your case as soon as you finish your first year and take a course. You're limited to appearing after in evidentiary matters like doing a trial until after you've taken evidence, and if it's criminal procedure. So there you really have to wait till your third year anyway. But yeah, and always we've had students appear in administrative hearings where you're putting on evidence. It's just you're sitting down instead of standing up, you know. It's just nobody's wearing robes. It's just like in an office, but it's still evidence, you know. It's clients testifying and you arguing. So there's plenty of opportunities to do that.
And I can say from personal experience, the question that was asked about what's it like your first year of law school, the first time you appear before a judge, whether it's an administrative court or a judge, your knees are knocking. So it's always nice to have that opportunity and that experience out of the way before you're actually appearing before a judge with a paid client sitting next to you. So I'd like to now turn the time over to you all and see if any of you have questions of the panel.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question, and like I said, I want to repeat those just for the video. The question goes to the Pro Bono initiative, and how do the clients find the Pro Bono attorneys and students, and vice versa? How do the attorneys and students find their clients?
That's a great question. So our clients find us through different nonprofits that we link up with. So like the Utah State Courts, all of our clinics are listed on their website, along with ULS and a lot of the other nonprofit agency providers, along with our website. Last year, our law students saw 1,700 clients. So that's really significant when you think about it, because this is a volunteer program that's run by students, and all of our attorneys are volunteer. The volunteer supervisors come from my list and the students that used to work with PBI and word and mouth. And right now we have a waiting list of attorneys that want to participate with our students. So
the other way people find the PBI clinics is they get referred.
Yeah.
So people file an answer in a divorce case themselves, or they show up in a debtor's collection case themselves, and they talk to the clerk about the paperwork they're filing, and the clerk says, you really should go to the PBI clinic. Because again, it's all posted on the court's website as well as our website. I was just communicating with someone from ASUU here on campus, the Association of Students, and they have a little advice-giving place, and they say they are constantly referring students to our PBI sites. So people get referred.
And I think that's kind of what Jess was talking about. That's really nice about the law school here, is that the legal community, you will get to know everyone in the legal community, because we're so close and located just right near downtown.
And can you actually give the location sites, I guess, generally geographically for your clinics?
Sure. So our clinics, and Katie can help me since we have 10, we have clinics that are located at Horizonte, which is downtown. It's an alternative school. We have 3 clinics located. One is in a Deseret Industries store and sugar house. Another clinic is at the LDS Employment Center. We have a clinic up in Ogden that's at a Deseret Industries.
The family law clinic is actually held at the Matheson Courthouse.
Yes. Rainbow Law is held at the Pride Center.
Indian Walk-In Center.
Yes, Indian Walk-In Center for our American Indian Legal Clinic.
And the expungement clinic's also held at the Employment Center at Welfare Square.
Yes.
So we're located all over Salt Lake
All
and in
over.
Ogden and Sugar House.
Ogden, for those of you who are here from out of state, is a city about 45 miles north of Salt Lake.
So we travel up there once a month.
Great. There's a question. The question is, what exactly is the difference between what you do as a clinic participant versus as a PBI volunteer?
I'll take that one. When we're talking about the PBI clinic sites, those are brief advice sites. So an individual comes, they tell you their story, the student checks with a lawyer who knows that area of law. Either the lawyer and the student advise the client, or the lawyer tells the student what to tell the client. So it's just brief advice. You're not doing any further representation on behalf of the client. You're not going to court. You don't have any responsibility after the advice. In the clinic placements, it's full service representation. So you talk to the client, or the paralegal talks to the client, they prepare the divorce papers, and then you go to court with them for their first hearing to get temporary orders. Or you go to a hearing on behalf of a person that's seeking disability benefits. I should also mention that in the clinical program, we give an award at graduation to a handful of students that have been excellent clinic students. So every semester after students complete their clinic work, we ask supervisors if they want to nominate their student as for that award. I think you got that award, Reyes. Not sure. But so some of the people that are here on campus have gotten that award. So the other clinic that I haven't mentioned is the judicial clinic. This is our biggest clinic. You work directly with a judge. It could be a judge from the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, the U.S. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, U.S. District Court, U.S. Bankruptcy Court, Utah Supreme Court, Utah Court of Appeals, Utah District Court, Utah Juvenile Court, Immigration Court, and then we have a couple ALJ courts, administrative law judge courts. So we've got more judges looking for students than we've got students to provide them with. And you're working directly with the judge and the judge's clerks. You're researching the cases that are before the judge, and you're drafting the opinion or the order for the judge. Of course, you know, the judge corrects your drafting, so you don't get to write the opinion without any input. But it's just like the post-law school clerkship role. So it's a great opportunity to learn legal analysis, to improve your legal writing, and also to get to understand what the judges think, you know, how judges think and what they're thinking about. Students work as prosecutors in the criminal clinic in their third year. So you might be working at this district attorney's office, or you might be working at a city attorney's office, and you're prosecuting misdemeanors on your own. You're showing up in court and you're negotiating guilty pleas, or you're putting on evidence in a trial. My criminal clinic students, some of them have had a number of trials this year. It's sometimes hard to get a jury trial, but some of them have had jury trials this year, and they put on their own. So you're taking the full responsibilities of the lawyer handling the case, or the clerk or the judge handling the case in the clinical program.
And Katie did the judicial clinic. Do you want to talk about that, your experience?
I think Professor Smith covered it pretty well. It is just great to get your name out there, get to know a judge, and kind of have that relationship as well. And it helps you learn if you want to do a clerkship after law school, because you get to do that brief semester. It's not a year or 2 year commitment. And so that's really great if you're unsure if that's what you want to do, to try that out, to kind of figure that out.
The way our clinical as well as our PBI programming works, or I should say benefits, from our location is the fact that while a number of law schools have clinical programs, because of their location, the kind of city they're in many cases, they have internal programs where the law offices basically run out of the law school and how they work on cases and what have you. But by virtue of being in Salt Lake City, a metropolitan area of 2 million people, a county seat, a federal seat for courts and agencies, the state capital for the Supreme Court and the Attorney General's office, and a whole host of other attributes, we are able to complement your education here in this building with real life lawyering and real life law offices or agencies that, but for being in a place like Salt Lake City, you would have to be elsewhere to get the full range of experiences firsthand, not just in a law school clinic office.
I should add to that. I moved here from Boston. Boston is also a capital city, but there's a bunch of law schools in Boston all competing for who gets to do what. So it's nice to be really the only game in town. And also the culture of this place is people are cooperative. You know, you call up a judge and says, well, this is what we want you to do with the student. And they go, okay, you know, we can handle that. Or we changed up some things in the criminal clinic, and I talked to all the supervising prosecutors and defenders and said, well, you know, would you be okay with doing this a little different this year? And they said, well, you know, that sounds okay. We'll do that. So, you know, they'll let you know if they want something different or if they aren't able to offer students an experience. But, you know, we push them to not just give you research in the back room. You know, we want the student out there in court, talking to clients, you know, having their own cases, assuming as much responsibility as they can, as long as they're supervised. And everybody's been totally cooperative about that. And that's a real difference with our clinical program and a lot of other extern-based programs where the students are basically doing whatever research the supervisor wants them to do. And they don't have that independence that we get for our students here.
Next question in the back.
Batteries, need batteries.
Are there different or expanded opportunities for the summer period? And I'd like to have all three, Linda, Jolynn, and Jess, answer that.
How does Jess start? Because summer jobs is the most typical.
There's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity in the summer. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the scope of the question, actually, because there's so many different things that are available. I guess just typically, there's 2 summers in law school, right? There's 1L summer and 2L summer. And there's a progression in that a lot of people start out in clinical programs and pro bono activities during their 1L summer, and during their 2L summer, maybe they've, by that point, identified an area of law that they're really interested in, and so they're able to focus on a specific type of employer, and then often work a paid position during the 2L summer. This is far from always. I mean, there is no absolute path. Everybody has a different path through law school, and so for many, many different people, it could be opposite or a combination of those things, but there's a little bit of a progression from 1L summer to being perhaps for credit, and 2L summer perhaps being a paid position. Lots of combinations in there. But we see people work locally. We see people take internships if they're interested, especially in policy. A lot of people will spend a summer in D.C. Or in another state capital, or even sometimes abroad. You'll see people who try one thing during their 1L summer because they came to law school to be a family law attorney and realized, hey, you know what I really like is securities. And so their second summer, maybe they're at the SEC. One of the cool things about law school is it's a chance to reinvent yourself. Just because you've done one thing doesn't mean you can't change. And that's an exciting part of the experience about trying new things. And it's just as valuable to find out something during your 1L summer that you don't want to do as it is something that you love. Because there's so many options. Sometimes it's hard to take some of the options off the table and focus a little bit more on sort of your long-term career. I'm going to stop.
Jolynn, can you tell us what PBI
Sure.
does during the summer?
So PBI, as I said before, we operate our clinics year-round. So we'll have 10 legal clinics that are rolling out every month. So in the summer, that's a great time to come and get some PBI volunteer hours. All of our 10 legal clinics operate at night. So it's actually pretty convenient for students. Usually students will do multiple clinics a month. And then besides our 10 free brief advice legal clinics that we operate, PBI also has long-standing pro bono placements that we also fill. And those vary throughout the year, like Wills for Heroes. We have a veterans legal clinic. We have all these other things that we do too. So everything operates year-round for us.
And I just wanted to chime in that it's not a one or the other. Most people will do some of all of this.
Yes, that's true.
A lot of these are part-time positions, or like a lot of the clinics meet once a month or twice a month. So you're going to do a variety of these things. You don't have to choose and say, I'm a PBI person. No, you're going to get a chance to do all of it.
Do your fellows, Katie, work during the summer? for PBI?
Over the summers, these past two, I have worked during the summer, which is really great because I've had jobs or other things during the day, and so then I got to go to pro bono clinics at night. This summer is to be determined because there's that thing called the bar exam that I'll be having to study for, so we'll see.
Well, just to be clear though, did you work in the PBI summer placements as a fellow? Was that part of your clinic student director role?
I started training, I would guess, because you find out I found out at the end of my 2L year that I was going to be a fellow, and then I started training because now I run our community legal clinic here in Salt Lake, and so I started training as a fellow, and so we do kind of unofficially start training for our positions during that time.
So this year, this is a good example. We have 5 PBI fellows and we have 18 student directors. So it's a big group we're a huge group.
Linda.
So this is going to be less encouraging. All students that are finishing their first year typically want to have some live experiences after their first year. And some of them get paid positions. But anybody that doesn't get a paid position, we will have a placement for you. However, it's mostly within the 2 major clinics, the judicial clinic and the civil clinic. That's because those are very basic, and based on your 1L learning, you're fully capable of doing research and writing and analysis for a judge, or you're fully capable of learning how to interview and counsel clients and negotiate on their behalf and handle an area of law that you maybe don't know anything about or maybe do. Many of our other clinics operate only or predominantly during the school year. So it doesn't make any sense to just focus on summers to do clinical work. It makes a lot more sense. In fact, you get better experience in some of the placements because fall semester, spring semester, those are 13, 14 weeks long. Summer's like 10 weeks long. So you got a better learning curve. Summers, some courts don't sit. During the fall and the spring, they all sit. And some people rush out and they want to do, a placement in DC and environmental something or other after their first year. And I go, we'll work with you. We'll give you a directed research to go along with that. But you'd really be better off waiting until you've taken the substantive courses because you're going to be better at what you're doing. We have placements at the SEC, and same thing. If you don't have any background in SEC issues and finance matters, you'd really be better waiting to do that more specialized stuff during your second or third year. So, I think it's good to get a job. It proves somebody can hire you. So I've got one student I'm trying to convince not to do a clinic this summer, but to do a job. Actually, well, you can do this clinic plan in the fall, because look, we can, Skype you into some classes from away. I mean, we have students that are placed internationally. We have students that are placed nationally. I think I have got a student going to Atlanta this summer, a student going to Denver this summer. But you're really better not to just focus on summers for the clinical program, but to do the clinical program. It's a course. You sign up for credits. You get a grade. Just you work it into your coursework during fall or spring, as well as for many people, summer after their first year.
A word about clinical programs during the summer and what other options it provides. So especially on a national basis, I would say that since the Great Recession of 2010, it has been a rarer case that students have jobs after their first year in terms of paid clerkships. So students are looking for the opportunities. The clinic provides that. But in addition, you qualify for financial aid. So it allows you to be a student in summer school, which will allow you to be packaged for a financial aid package, primarily loans. If you were to do a clinical placement, say in Washington, D.C. or abroad, through the university's study abroad office and some other offices, you can get some support. They have some fellowship type scholarships, or we have some summer fellowships that you can compete here for that support. But as long as you're earning 5 credits or more in any of these placements, you qualify for financial aid. If you're doing an international placement or domestically a placement away from Salt Lake City, your financial aid package can include eligibility for support on your travel, your airfare, things like that. So it's something to keep in mind in providing resources for living expenses and other opportunities during the summer. I want to use this as a segue to ask a question of Jess, the question that was asked during the faculty session. What's your observation on the legal market in Salt Lake, as well as generally?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a complicated question. As you know, you've probably heard that JD opens doors in many different fields, and so, of course, some fields are stronger than others. But quite honestly, right now, the legal market in Salt Lake City is as good as it is likely to get. We are going to post, a lot of you I know will be interested in the latest employment numbers. We're going to post our numbers for the class of 2017 at the end of next week, so you'll be able to look those up. The highlights are going to be that we had a 95% employment rate, and of the people who were unemployed, basically there were some personal choices that were keeping them out of the market at the moment. We're going to see a 75+% at graduation employment rate, which has been really good. That is as good as it's been for us in quite a while. I think this year's class is going to do just as well. And so we're in a pretty good market. And the market is also, I think, quite strong nationally. A lot of students, the vast majority of our students in recent years have stayed in Utah because the Utah economy has been so strong. We have, I think, the lowest or second lowest unemployment rate in the country right now. But also elsewhere. We had, I think, the largest number of students in a decade or so leave the state last year for just because their dream jobs happen to be outside of the state. So I think that your timing is really good. The markets seem to be doing well. There's an expansion and it's a cyclical period, but there's an expansion in non-law firm jobs have been quite strong lately. Goldman Sachs their office here in Salt Lake has become their second largest worldwide office, has become a real strong employer, and that has attracted ancillary, similar investment banking opportunities to the Valley. So that's been a growing sector. Things are pretty good. I feel like there may be some specific employment questions that I'd like to answer. Does anybody want to direct me in a particular direction? You can all sneak by my office and ask me your, one-on-one as well. Our office has an open door policy. There's almost always someone in there to talk to. I'm on the 3rd floor. So if you get a chance today, feel free to come by and ask me about what you want to do, or maybe you have a couple or 3 ideas in your mind, and you're like, which do you think I should focus on? We can start that conversation. And that's a conversation that you talk about for your entire law school career, isn't it, Katie?
We're all on the 3rd floor. All the cool kids are on the 3rd floor.
All of us are on the 3rd floor here. 3rd floor is the best floor.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
I was wondering if there's any initiative for the PBI to provide those pro bono services in rural communities throughout Utah?
That's a great
question. Is there any initiatives to provide opportunities in rural communities in Utah through PBI?
So that's a great question. One of my fellows right now, one of her assignments is to write a paper. She's researching what are the legal resources available to, for instance, LGBT people in rural areas. So that's something that we're researching right now. And then her paper will come out at the end of her fellowship.
And then we also have the Wills for Heroes clinic,
Yes,
and that is held, it's not held here in Salt Lake, it rotates throughout the year, so I think it's once or twice a semester we'll have locations, and they've been in
St. George, Springville, Utah. I haven't been to Springville, Utah, but Springville, Utah, which is down by Provo, I believe.
a lot of different smaller cities around the state is where we rotate and go to so we can serve the different communities, so that placement also goes.
So on that point, I should point out that the clinical program in working with outside agencies often has an opportunity for students to work outside of Salt Lake. So for instance, Utah Legal Services serves the low income and civil matters throughout the state. One summer I had a student want to go to St. George because that's where her family is, and there's a legal services office there. And I said, well, okay, let's do the boot camp course and then go to St. George. And you'll Skype in for the classes you're going to be away for. And Legal Services has an office in Ogden, and they have an office in Provo. So I've got a student this summer working for a judge, and I think a judge or maybe Legal Services in Provo. The tax clinic, we ask for support to serve Salt Lake and Ogden, but in fact my tax professor has gone to Moab twice to do outreach, and we accept cases from all over the state. And sometimes you're just going to do intake over the phone. We could do Skype intake. Disability Law Center, which is another placement, serves the entire state for people with disabilities with legal issues that deal with their disabilities. So they take weekly jaunts down to the state hospital to represent people that have mental illness and that are in the state hospital. So, and I have students want to do a prosecutor placement outside of Salt Lake. I had a student wanted to do it was parental defense in family law cases in, I can't remember, it was Manti one summer, and that's fine. I have let's find the lawyer that has that portfolio there. Oh, former student, okay. Let's have him supervise the student there in Manti working on guardian ad litem cases. So, yeah, it's not if you want to go someplace, not Salt Lake, we'll work with you to figure out what you can do with a state office or a nonprofit office in that area.
So,
You didn't ask the question, but both the Utah State Bar and the S.J. Quinney are also very concerned about careers in rural communities. There's definitely a shrinking demographic as attorneys retire and aren't replaced in some of the rural areas, and that affects access to justice issues and all sorts of sort of community vibrancy things. So you and I should talk.
Just point of context for those who aren't from Utah. St. George is a community in the southwest corner of Salt Lake, and actually there was a recent article. It, as a county, I think, is the fourth fastest growing county by population in the United States in this last year. So that in terms of opportunities and growth, things like that. Our time with the panel has come to a close. The next session is going to be our mock class on the third floor, so a couple floors down, or 3 floors down in room 36. It'll also be in the corner of the building, the section of the building where we had breakfast, that same portion. So either take the elevators or there's a set of stairs here. Professor Reinhardt will be teaching the class. But if you could also join me in thanking the panelists for their time today. And the class will start at 10:30.